The 2025-26 championship season might just be saved. Or has it actually been saved? Because there could be some more controversy and some more twists and turns later down the line. But there might just be some positive news that we can latch onto for a few teams in the championship that have really been struggling in their preparation going into the new season. If you're a championship fan, then this is the place to be. Do hit that subscribe button for daily championship content. If you wouldn't mind helping me out, it'll be very greatly appreciated. As I say, this is the place to be. If you like championship content, hit subscribe on this page. And as well as that, drop a like down below if you do go on to enjoy the video. Now, to me, 3 teams are standing out in the championship where I think they are in a little bit of a mess going into the new season. Now, starting off with Hull City, we know they've recently had a transfer embargo. The owner's put out a statement he's confident of it being overturned, but not good signs coming out for when you look at the owner and the past that he's got. And there's a lot of question marks there. And early signs with Hull City in terms of their financial situation doesn't look too great. But as I say, it's still very early days with that. We can't, drag Hull too much, but it's not good signs at all. They're in kind of the best situation out of these 3 teams. But then you've also got Leicester City as well, who obviously are looking at getting a points deduction. Not really much has been happening at Leicester. It's all been very quiet in terms of, transfer incomings and just the club in general. And obviously the fans are very much against the ownership there and the way it's been running the last few years because it has been absolutely shocking. And that's another club there that are in a bit of a mess going into the new season. I mean, a bit of a mess, probably understand. They're in an absolute mess going into the new season. And then, of course, you've got probably the most well-documented one, especially over the last few weeks, the one that's been the most talked about, is the situation with Sheffield Wednesday and Chansiri, because we have had a bit of an update with that, which could be positive news. But then at the same time, as I say, twists and turns could be on the horizon. Because of the positive news that has come out of Sheffield Wednesday is that there are parties from the UK, the US and Monaco all interested in buying Sheffield Wednesday, and it says a takeover could happen quickly. That is fantastic news. Straight up, that's fantastic news. But then you think, we've got 3 different parties here from 3 different places, all looking to buy Sheffield Wednesday. Who's the owner of Sheffield Wednesday? It's Chansiri. And what is this guy going to do? He is going to try and milk every single penny out of this deal. Whoever's buying the club, as I say, if it's three different parties that are all interested in Wednesday, Chansiri is going to be awkward with this one. You just can't help but think it. And he's going to say he's going to try and get as much money out of this as possible. And the worst thing that he could possibly do is try and stall this deal, try and get as much money out of it as he possibly can instead of just walking away. And you could be in a situation where all these buyers might just call it a day and think, you know what, it's too much stress, it's not worth this. If Chansiri is being awkward, we'll walk away from the deal. Absolutely not out of the question, in my opinion. So it could be a bidding war for Sheffield Wednesday, which all 3 could potentially walk away, because we don't know how keen really is Chansiri in walking away. He might say, yeah, if the right offer comes, I'll walk away, and all this nonsense. He doesn't care. This guy will absolutely drag Sheffield Wednesday through the mud. So this is positive news, yes, but can you absolutely bank on this takeover guaranteed going to happen? In my opinion, you absolutely can't do that. But as I say, it's as positive news as you can get for Sheffield Wednesday. It's an absolute rollercoaster being a Sheffield Wednesday fan. Is there ever a day, or is there ever a quiet day being a Sheffield Wednesday fan? Because it feels like at the moment there's something breaking every single day, and it's all so conflicting and all so confusing. But you can't argue that this is a positive thing, that there are people interested in Sheffield Wednesday. But it's another question whether they'll actually go and get this done and whether it will actually happen. Because if it doesn't happen and Chansiri is still in charge, the mess resumes at Sheffield Wednesday, and you think, what kind of situation are they going to be in a month's time? How are they actually going to be coping? And you think you are actually fearing the worst for Sheffield Wednesday at that point. But as I say, positive news. Let's hope for the best, and let's hope that Sheffield Wednesday can take over and Chansiri actually decides to sell up. And then some more news coming out is the most crazy news, I think, is that Danny Rohl is actually going to be returning to Sheffield Wednesday. It is going to happen. He's going to come back to Wednesday after literally, twerking for about 7 different championship clubs overseas. Nobody wants him. Chansiri don't want to get rid of him, of course, because you have to pay him off. Other clubs don't want to pay the compensation, because I'm so puzzled at why clubs haven't gone for Danny Rohl. I mean, obviously it is going to be compensation they're going to have to pay, but this guy is a top championship manager. The situation that he's had to deal with at Wednesday is nothing short of a disgrace. He's led them to a mid-table finish, a comfortable top half finish. They finished 12th in the end. And as well as that, he kept them up. These guys would literally be in League One if it wasn't for Danny Rohl, and it's just a fact. And this guy doesn't get the credit he deserves, and other clubs looking at him. And I do kind of feel bad for him in that regard, because as I say, he's literally, he said what he said. He literally said that he wants to be in a new job. He doesn't want to be with Sheffield Wednesday. He hasn't turned up, and then all of a sudden now, with the news of the potential new ownership coming in, Sheffield Wednesday being taken over, Danny Rohl's now open to returning to Wednesday. You think, great news, at least, Danny Rohl's done such a good job there. and it's great that the manager then wants to return a guy that's done so well at Sheffield Wednesday. But then it comes out a few hours later. The general consensus among the Sheffield Wednesday players and staff is that they would prefer if Danny Rowe didn't return. And they said they felt like too much has happened, which is very understandable, including his absence from pre-season, for him just to walk back into the job. And as I say, from a player's perspective, you understand it, The manager, is he really committed to the job? He's literally said that he wants to, he wants to go to another club, he wants to go to other clubs. He's always, as I say, there's so many clubs that have been interested and he's been interested in joining just to get away from Wednesday. And I'm not blaming Danny Rowe on the slightest for that, because you can't blame him, because look at the job that he's done. He probably feels, he definitely feels like he definitely does deserve better than what Chansiri's given him. And you can't blame Danny Rowe for that. But then from the player's perspective, he's not been there for pre-season. He isn't interested in Sheffield Wednesday at all. You can understand from the player's perspective, maybe them bridges have already been burnt and you think, can Danny Rowe come back from this as a Sheffield Wednesday manager? And especially how this Chansiri, it's not like Chansiri's guaranteed to be leaving or anything like that. But after all that, it's such a bizarre story. And as I say, it's such a roller coaster to have Danny Rowe then out of nowhere now look like he's coming back to Sheffield Wednesday, to be with the team again. But then the team now are saying that, we don't know if we even want this guy to be our manager or not. Genuinely, it's just such a ridiculous and unbelievable situation. And you can't help but think, come the start of the season, there is going to be so many more twists and turns, to the point where it's just like, what is even going on at Sheffield Wednesday? But as I say, I wish them the best and I hope it all goes well in terms of the takeover and things do progress. But as I say, you really can't be counting your lucky stars and thinking it's all done, because it's not. It's far from that. But as I say, we'll wait and see. And another situation where, is it positive? I'm not so sure, because the reaction has been very interesting over at Leicester City. They've finally decided to make a new manager appointment at long last. We knew Ruud van Nistelrooy was going for ages before they got rid of him. They had to get rid of him at a certain time due to PSR, I believe, due to finances, due to that situation. They wanted it to come over to the next year. So they ended up parting ways with Ruud van Nistelrooy, who was an absolutely dreadful appointment. And by the way, Leicester have been disjointed ever since Maresca left. In the Premier League, it never really felt like they had any momentum after Maresca left going into it. And with Steve Cooper, he didn't actually do a terrible job, in my opinion. Cooper, he did kind of, he had them outside the relegation zone, which is good as you can get with Leicester with the team that they had. And obviously, it wasn't the best football. He was very pragmatic, but that was the kind of way that Leicester had to go about it. I think they would have gone down with Steve Cooper anyway, but they would have done much better than what they did under Ruud van Nistelrooy. But they've finally decided to replace him, and the manager decided to replace him with, as I say, to be honest, the reaction has been surprising to me. They've decided to replace him with Marti Cifuentes, and me being a QPR fan obviously knows Marti and what he's about very well. And I just wanted to discuss the kind of job that he's done at QPR first before we kind of get into the appointment at Leicester. And I think the job that Marti Cifuentes has done at QPR was overall just a very good job. Now we can look at last season. We'll go to the table from just when Marti first came in to QPR in the 23-24 season, because that's where I really thought we saw the best out of Marti. Now, we were in a situation at QPR where we were sat second bottom of the league. We were cut adrift at the bottom. We ended up finishing that season in 18th, 6 points clear of relegation, and literally picked up pretty much almost playoff form in the second half of the season, or pretty much was playoff form. And Marti Cifuentes was the guy, if we didn't have Marti, we would have been relegated that season. So we have, as a QPR fans, even though it ended kind of a little bit sour, we have so much gratitude towards Marti and what the job that he did to us, the job that he did for us, because we'd probably be in League One last season if it wasn't for Marti Cifuentes. And as I said, to keep the club up by 6 points, he really did bring the fans back on side. It was under a period where we were under Gareth Ainsworth. It was very disjointed. Marti brought everybody together, and the fans got behind him right from the word go. He made really good signings for us at the start in January, which were the difference in us then staying up in the second half of the season, having that kind of form. And in the second season, it just didn't really work out. And we didn't do bad, don't get me wrong. We were sat at the bottom of the table at the start of the season. And Marti was he was very stubborn at the start of the season with the football that we were playing. It was too slow. It was possession based. And it was very different to what we played, the pragmatic kind of style that we played when we kind of stayed up that season under Marti in the first season. But he adapted. He changed his ways. He kind of went back to the style that we were kind of playing when we did stay up, and it worked out in the end. We had a very good run. At one point, it looked like we could potentially maybe push for playoffs, and then completely fell away at the end of the season. And we're looking a bit over our shoulders at relegation, but we were absolutely fine in the end. And we had a lot of injuries last season. Marti Cifuentes, as I say, the job that he did last season was average. I think the players that he signed, some of them were very questionable. He signed Janseller, he signed Nicholas Madsen, which if they were his players, questionable signings. I'm not sure if it was him or the CEO who signed these players. But the second season wasn't the best. It wasn't awful, don't get me wrong. But you definitely saw flaws in Marti's game in terms of team selections. I thought were off on a regular basis. I think his substitutes were poor, and I think the wrong substitutes and the wrong timings of substitutes as well. But I'm not saying he's a bad manager at all, because I think he's a very good manager. And for me, in my opinion, the Leicester job, just going back onto Leicester, I think Marti did a very good job at QPR, and I wish him well at Leicester. But Leicester fans are talking like it's a bad appointment. But like, what do they expect? Leicester are getting a points deduction. The club's in an absolute mess. The ownership is horrendous. You're not going to get like a real top manager who's going to like drop everything to come to Leicester City. Because why would you? Because it's a very risky job to take. Marti Cifuentes proved himself in the Championship, and I think he's a very good Championship manager. Now, maybe Leicester fans want better than that, but Marti also hasn't been given the opportunity at a top-end Championship club to prove himself. Give him the opportunity, I think, get behind him, and I think he will do a very good job at Leicester City. And as I say, he's coming into it in such difficult circumstances with, the transfer situation. Not really had any rumours of even any incomings. Obviously, a lot more outgoings going from Leicester. They're going to have to sell a lot of players to bring some players in. Marty's walked under kind of a tight budget at QPR, even though he did spend a reasonable amount in that second season for kind of QPR standards. But he's worked with a tight budget, and he's done a fantastic job at pretty much wherever he's been. If you look at his managerial past where he's been in Europe, he's done very well there. And I'd say overall he did do a very good job at QPR. So I think going forward for Leicester, I think it's a good appointment. I think Leicester fans have got to get behind him. If you're not going to get behind him from the start, there was no point even appointing him in the first place from a Leicester perspective. And as I say, he's not done a bad job at QPR, and he deserves an opportunity, in my opinion, at a club like Leicester, at a big Championship club, one of the biggest clubs, if not the biggest club in the Championship this season. He deserves this opportunity, and I wish him all the best, and hopefully Leicester fans can see the best out of Marti Cifuentes, and he can guide them to a very successful season, which at this point I don't really know what a successful season is, given the fact that there's still so many question marks with Leicester going into the new season. Ideally, it'll probably be playoffs, but as I say, the points deduction, who's going to leave, I don't know. It's a bit of a mess at Leicester, and Marti Cifuentes took over a mess at QPR and fixed it, and I back him again to fix the mess over at Leicester City, as well as he possibly can do anyway. So let me know what you think of everything in the comment section down below between these three clubs, especially Hull City, Sheffield Wednesday and Leicester going into the new season. Be very interested to get your thoughts. If you enjoyed the video, drop a like down below. Subscribe to the channel if you are new around here. We do daily Championship content, so if you wouldn't mind hitting that subscribe button. And as well as that, yeah, if you watch this point, you may as well hit that subscribe button. Be very greatly appreciated. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.